people say to me, "Yeah, you were working at Condé Nast," but I was writing headlines at Condé Nast. Like, I was literally the person who would write the, like, cheesy, "It's spreading like wildflowers," uh, and that was it, right? That's all I got to do.
If you've ever been fired, if you ever realized that you were working on what you thought would be your dream place to work and you are just doing very menial jobs, or if you feel like, well, they told me that the only way that I can make it is if I live in LA, New York, and London, and none of those things seem to apply to you, this is the conversation for you, okay? Carrie Scott is one of our mentors for the 2001 mentoring edition of I Like Networking. She's also an art historian, curator, TV presenter, art writer, and many, many more things. This is such a fun conversation. Carrie's super generous, a very shiny soul, if I may say so. And I'm super excited to have her on the program. She's worked in the art world for over 16 years. She actually got a break in Seattle, from all places, and started working with Rashid Johnson ages ago, okay, which is a really fun story. She's worked as well with Nick Knight, Marina Shakola, and so many more. She's really passionate about subverting and disrupting the model of how people work with artists, and a true champion of the arts and of the artists themselves. So, without further ado, here's the conversation with Carrie.
Carrie Scott, welcome to the I Like Networking podcast. Thanks so much for being here with us today and for being a mentor on this year's program.
It's a total pleasure and a real honor, actually, to be asked to be one of your mentors.
That's very kind. Before we delve really deeply into your career and all the amazing things you do and have done, can you quickly introduce yourself and tell us where you are, where you're from, and what is it that you currently do for work?
I mean, none of that is answered quickly or simply, but let's give it a shot. So, I'm based in London. I'm an art historian, a curator, and for the last 11 years, I've had my own business helping artists to better monetize what they do outside of your sort of traditional gallery models. Um, and uh, I'm in London. I said that I'm British by birth, but I grew up in America, which is why my accent is confused and stuck somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic. Um, and I think I've just answered all your questions, maybe. Did I?
Yes, you did very well. Thank you. So, Carrie, obviously have a very multifaceted experience in the art world, and I want to get to all of that. And before that, could you just tell us right at the start, when you were younger, did you always know that you wanted to work in the arts or in that field? Were you always interested in it? How did you decide, okay, this is where I'm gonna go?
Well, so that's a great question because no, I didn't know. I always wanted to be in the art world. Um, I was almost a double major at university. I did an English degree with a minor. I was 2 credits short of a double major in art history. And I loved art. I loved making art. I loved writing about art, but I really came at it from the writing perspective. I wanted to be a writer. And when I graduated from university, I got what I thought was my dream job at Condé Nast. And I was part of Condé Nast Traveler's online website, which was Concierge. And this is 2001. So the internet hadn't quite figured itself out. And certainly magazines hadn't worked out how to make money online. Uh, and but I was there and I was writing and I was doing headlines and um, sort of enjoying it. Uh, I had one boss in particular who was amazing, and actually, I tagged her when I posted about the I Like Networking mentorship because she was an incredible mentor for me, and she embraced all the things I was good at, which was the creative side and the writing side, and less so the sort of production of getting things online. Um, and I had been working for all of 5 minutes when September 11th happened, and living in New York, obviously that was a massive seismic event for everybody. And it really made me look at what I was doing and how I was part of this big machine, and that I wasn't tapping into the things that I found joy, or the places I found joy. Um, and I kid you not, I was spending tons of time going to museums, because as part of the perk or the benefit of being a Condé Nast employee, you had membership to places like the Whitney and MoMA, and so, I wasn't being paid a huge amount, but I would spend my afternoons and evenings at museums. And a security guard came up to me at MoMA and said, "Hey, are you in the art world? Like, what do you do? Why are you always here?" And I was so taken aback that I was like, no, I'm not in the art world. I wish I was. I'm not though." And I suddenly was like, "Do you know what? Life is too short. I need to figure out how to write about art properly, like to get commissioned for it." And so I applied to exactly 3 programs uh, to get a art history degree. Um, and I got into school at the University of Washington, in Seattle, a place I'd never been before. And they offered me some financial aid, and the decision was kind of made for me. And off I went to Seattle, where I got my degree, and um, met some incredible people like James Harris, who took me on as a graduate with very little experience, and Eric Frederickson, who also took me on with zero experience to help him do some sort of archival stuff at Bill and Ruth True's collection. And I got like super fast hands-on experience in an incredible place. So I was doing my degree, but also working, and I got to do some writing, and I just got to do it all, and it was a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic experience. Um, and I was kind of like living my dream, right? I was running a nonprofit, I was running a gallery, I was writing for the newspaper, I was doing all these things, and I was like, this is amazing. And I felt like I was really making a difference. Um, and I did a show with an artist called Rashid Johnson, who is now basically a household name. I mean, he's a phenomenon.
He is incredible.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that.
Well, so it's worth mentioning, right? So I met him. I met him like in a very sort of accidental way. I was back in New York with seeing my brother, and there for, I think it was for the Armory show. And my brother was doing an event at a music, I can't even remember, at a music venue or something, and he asked me to just work the door for him. And I was like, yeah, sure, extra money, why not? Arts do not pay when you're entry level.
Yeah.
Um, and Rashid came up to me with a group of friends, and he wasn't on the guest list. And he said, I'm this cool artist. I'm actually on the cover of Paper Magazine this month. And I was like, yeah, sure you are. Who are you? And he said his name, and I was like, wait, I do know who you are. You Chicago-based artist. And we started talking, and he's like, how do you know who I am? And why are you working the store? It's so weird. Um,
That's incredible.
And we exchanged email addresses, and I went back to James Harris, the commercial gallery, and I said, James, we've got to do the show. We've got to do the show. This artist is incredible. Jim immediately was like, yeah, we do have to do the show. Um, and so Rashid did the first show ever outside of Chicago with us. And then he got picked up by Nicole Klagsbrun in New York, and he said to her, hey, you should really think about getting this young woman, Carrie Scott in Seattle, to come back to New York. She's amazing. Um, and so I did. Nicole offered me a job, like brilliantly paid, back in New York, and I thought, here we go. This is it. Like, this is going to be the career defining thing I do. Um, uh, and in lots of ways, um, it wasn't the best thing I could have done, because I got back to New York, and I'm not cut out for the, like, right, you've got to be a director, and all you're going to do is sell, and you can't like deviate from that. You have to just
Yeah.
focus on selling. Um, and it also happened to be 2008 when I moved back, which obviously is another
You and New York have great timing, clearly.
I mean, it's just not meant to be, is it? Um, so, I mean, literally, I was sitting at Freeze with Nicole here in London when Lehman Brothers collapsed and the FT paper hits our desk, and we're like, dun, 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 it's over. And soon thereafter, she did actually lay me off, and I thought it was the biggest disaster that had ever happened to me. I mean, I am when I say I was devastated, my entire identity is tied up in what I do. And this woman was saying to me, "I'm so sorry, but I have to make cuts. Like this is too big of a thing, and financially we can't afford you." And I was just like, I have failed. Um, but from that, I, picked myself up, dusted myself off, and when I say I was like, I mean, I was sobbing for days. Um, and then I was like, "Nope, I know. I'm gonna do my own thing." The gallery system is broken. Nicole was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on rent. No one comes into galleries. I This is crazy. I'm just gonna help artists without all that. I'm just gonna do some cool stuff and everything's gonna be fine. My parents were like, "You have zero savings. You're still paying off your school debt. Are you sure you're gonna do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, mom. I haven't got a mortgage. I don't have a husband. I don't have kids. It's great. This is it. We're gonna do this." And somehow, God knows, still standing. However many years later it is now, what, 11, 12 years, something like that. Um,
I love this. This is such. Wait, I gotta stop you there to ask you a few questions before you move on to how successful you've made your career, because there are so many, I guess, lessons, things, and that people can learn from this. I mean, first of all, the whole getting fired and feeling like your job is you, like there's no separation, is such a common issue in the creative industries. And I think it's really great to hear you say that, like, so transparently, because for a lot of people, I think this will resonate, especially right now, where so many
mm,
people have lost their jobs because of economic factors, right? Um, and it can be really hard. I also, when I lost my job before lunch hour working, same reason, pandemic and reduced costs, and I was a freelancer, so obviously I was one of the first to go. It was the same. I did what I call Netflix and crying instead of Netflix and chilling, because it was a lot of Netflix and a lot of crying. I was like, what am I gonna do? Just like I have no idea. And it can be so daunting. But I wanted to just ask you a little bit about your experience. First, why did you decide to go to the States to study? And then how do you, I mean, a lot of times when we talk about the creative industries, they tend to, you know, happen in London or in New York, or maybe sometimes in LA, depending on your industry. And you had all these incredible experiences in Seattle, right?
mm,
So how do you think it's was a good thing, like to be like kind of like be in a smaller pond to start?
yeah.
Because I don't know a lot of people who have done that, to be honest, who
It's
have
a
gone
it's
to a smaller place.
it's a really, really insightful question, Isabel. Yes, I think, I had grown up split between my parents being London based and New York based, or just outside New York and just outside London. And all I had done is pivot between those two cities. So my my view of the world was kind of, these two cities are where we should be and what we should do. But actually, neither city had really been all that nurturing or embraced me. Um, and the Seattle thing was a total accident. There was one professor there called Patricia Failing, who I loved something she had written. I can't even remember what that thing was, but it was enough to make me apply to go there. Um, and she directly got in touch with me, and invited me to the program. And I wouldn't have gone there without that. Like I knew nothing about Seattle. And then when I got there, because as you say, it is a smaller pond, the community, it was hard to penetrate, but it kind of wasn't. Once I met one person, they introduced me to the next person, and it all just sort of it happened really naturally. And I could say to people, "Hey, I want to write for the Stranger, which is this newspaper. Um, how do I do that?" And someone's like, "Well, I'll introduce you to Charles Medede. He's one of the editors." And then all of a sudden, I was writing for a newspaper. And that wouldn't have happened in New York. There's just no way. And people say to me, "But yeah, you were working at Condé Nast," but I was writing headlines at Condé Nast. Like I was literally the person who would write the like cheesy, "It's spreading like wildflowers," and that was it, right? That's all I got to do. So, so I think that being in that smaller pond and a place that was growing, and is still growing, right? Seattle is growing at the speed of light. And it's an interesting place if you think about, there are all these amazing companies headquartered there. Microsoft most famously, but you have Starbucks, you have Amazon, you have Costco, you have I'm forgetting all of them, but you've got this industry that is really growing. And of course then that brings in artists. And there's it was an amazing place to be. And in so many ways I regret leaving. Um I do. I like I think well, yeah, it was just it's a special place. And I don't know that it's like that anymore. I think it was right place, right time. Um, but it was I my career was definitely helped by being in a second tier city, if you will. And
Yeah,
I'd recommend to anyone right now that's struggling in these bigger cities to think about, where can they go and have a bigger impact, right?
yeah, 100%. Because also you can do all of those things everywhere.
Mm,
It's just maybe it won't be like as glamorous or won't feel like the center of the world, but it's not really, really, right? Like so I mean I think the US is a very specific sort of country in it. There's a lot of like in air quotes good middle-sized cities. There's obviously New York and LA, but you can also and I guess San Francisco, but there's also, a lot of stuff happening in say Seattle or Chicago and like in Texas, so there's it whereas in a lot of other countries it's like the capital or nothing, or at least that's what
mm,
it seems, right? And I agree with you. I mean, I came from a small pond in a way because obviously I was in São Paulo, which is like the largest city in Brazil and a pretty big city by all standards, right? There's over 22 million people, but
mm,
the creative industry is very small. So it was like a little bit like yours when I got in. Once I met three people, then you kind of meet almost anyone.
mm.
There's not that many people doing it, so it's easier to grow, I guess, and to find a name for yourself. And when I came to London, I was like, oh my god, even though there's less people here, there's more people in the industry, and it has like I feel like more structures and gatekeepers, and it's harder to understand how to operate. Um, but anyway, I digress. I really like that about your experience. I think it's super interesting.
Thanks.
And so I love the fact that you decided as well to take a risk and do something that you believed had true value, and try to disrupt the system. So, what was your idea? Like, how were you going to support artists without the traditional gallery model?
So this is slightly pre pop-up mentality, but I felt that there was a way to do exhibitions in more interesting places than a white cube. Um, and so, like, task number one was figuring out if that was possible. And could you do things in fun spaces? And again, that was something I had sort of carried over from Seattle. One of my sort of closest friends out there, Greg Lundgren, he had, and he still has, a bar that is an art bar, and all the work on the walls you can buy, and it is literally hung from ceiling to floor. Um, and we had done a number of really cool things together in Seattle, and I just kept thinking, like, it's more interesting seeing work that way. And for me, it is. It just, I love happening upon art rather than um, going to a space to see it deliberately, if you will. Um, so that was the sort of core idea. But then I also realized that artists are not great business people, right? So they're not good at thinking about ways to make passive income and how to better market their stuff and how to can they sell things outside of their galleries. And then I realized that photographers who have existing archives and have, content that they can sell were the sort of perfect demographic for me to speak to. So pretty quickly, I realized that working specifically with um, successful photographers, so maybe commercial, like fashion photographers, or maybe photojournalists, um, to help them release prints and create a market for what they do outside of just being commissioned was was something that would be interesting. And that's how I ended up meeting Nick Knight. And I worked with him for a decade.
Oh,
He was
wow.
he was one of my sort of
Amazing.
primary clients for, yeah, for 10 years. And helped him just, quite literally, he hadn't sold a print before we worked together. And all of a sudden I'm standing there saying, you some of these greatest hits images we should sell, we should edition, we should sell, we should show, we should um and yeah, that was just another amazing experience. And someone who really he believed that what I was saying was true, and he trusted me with the entire archive. Um, and it was a really wonderful thing we did together.
It's interesting because you said at the beginning that you didn't want to just be like, or you didn't identify with the guest traditional gallery director role, super focused on sales, and yet you had some instinct for it. It seems on how to like make their work commercially viable. Let's put it that way. Is that how you felt doing it, or were you coming from a different angle?
I I don't I don't know. Um, I
It's
think
all
that
good. Don't know are always acceptable answers here.
I think when I look at something that I love, I find it really easy to talk about it. And so by virtue of that, like, immediate, oh my God, look at the line in that painting, or look at the way that the composition cuts across the page, or whatever it is, right? Um, so I am naturally good at spin and at selling. Um, and I know that, right? And I think that's also what writers do. And it's why, right, I always wanted to be a writer, because I like telling a story, or I like helping people see things. Um, it's strange to me that I'm good at helping people make money. Or it's like it's strange to me that I'm good at the sort of strategy, but I see it like a puzzle, and I love puzzles. So I ask all my clients, I'll say to them, okay, where do you want to be in 10 years and how do we get there? Like, okay, you want a museum show at the V&A? Right, let's work backwards. We need to do this, and this. And 90% of the time I'm totally guessing, or I was totally guessing in the beginning and following instinct. Whereas now I'm like, well, I know exactly what we need to do because that worked last time, and we might need to change this and that. But um, but yeah, I like the creating a little map and helping people on their way. The weirdest thing is that I never do it for me. Um, right? Like,
I feel you. Yeah, it's easier when you do it for others, I guess.
yeah,
So you're almost like a talent agent in that way, like a bit a manager, a talent manager in a way.
definitely. Um, and it's taken me on a crazy path. At the moment, I'm working with a tech startup, which is in the art space. But fundamentally it's a tech startup, which weirdly like brings me back to the Condé Nast moment where I'm back online. Um, but I'm helping this, yeah, a tech platform help artists make money outside of the traditional gallery model. So all of a sudden I'm like, wait, 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 what have I become? I'm not even helping directly helping artists anymore. I mean, I am because there's artists on the platform, but it, it's yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's made me question, or it hasn't made me question. It's made me think about, God, maybe my value isn't just in helping artists. Maybe there's a broader brushstroke here that I should be thinking about, just with regards to my own business strategy.
Yeah, I mean, you have a very extensive career. You've been working for, way over a decade. And so I think you probably amassed a lot of knowledge in different areas, which I guess made it possible for you to have this multi-hyphenate career or portfolio career, whatever you want to call it. And it's interesting because I think one of the things I really wanted to have you on the program is kind of because of that, because of the different ways you operate in the art world. We work with people from all ages, but we do work with a lot of millennials and younger generations, and there is a lot of interest in being able to create a career like that, where you can actually go from one thing to another in a more fluid way.
Friends, this is a quick break to tell you about our amazing sponsors Day, and women-led company revolutionizing your periods with sustainable tampons you can be proud of. They're clinically validated, cramp-suiting CBD tampons delivered straight to your door whenever it fits your cycle. To get £5 off your first box of tampons or probiotics, just head over to yourday.com and use the code NETWORKING5.
It would be really great to hear from you. How do you do this all organically? Did you always find it easy to tell your story and explain to people what were your transferable skills from one thing to another? Or did you just were had amassed a really great network and those invites just came? Like how did you go how did it, now looking back in hindsight, what do you think are the things that helped you to create a career in that way? Does that make sense?
Mm. So I think instinct plays a big role, um, and hard work. Like there being in the creative space is not the easy choice, right? And I look at my friends who are um have more traditional jobs where they sit at a desk and it's 9 to 5, and I think, oh God, should I have just done that? Like, should I have just had a job that I knew what it was that I was going to do every day, and I knew that the certain income was going to come in, um, and then I'm like, well, I tried that, and I'm obviously not suited for it. This I am suited for. I enjoy the challenges that come with having your own business and hustling, and I enjoy shifts, right? And if you look at my career, it's like I I that's whenever there's been something to shift, I've shifted. Um, so I think first and foremost, you have to look at yourself as a person and ask yourself you if this sort of life would suit you, um, and if you like doing diverse things. So at my core, I am still a writer. I love writing, and I use it sounds ridiculous, but I use Instagram as my primary outlet for that, or press releases. I like telling stories, so I love interviewing. And I just kept sort of asking myself, what do I love? What do I want to see? I love seeing exhibitions in unusual spaces. Okay, I'm going to go do that. I like talking about art in a way that's accessible. Okay, I'm just going to go do that. And it hasn't always meant immediate profit, but it has meant immediate joy, and I have felt value throughout my career. Um, and so I think maybe, and I'm slightly thinking on my feet because no one's ever asked me that. Um, but I think it's asking yourself, what do I want from the world? And if it's not out there, can I create it?
Well, I feel like we should just end all podcasts now because that was an incredible answer. So you told me at the beginning that you're not used to being interviewed, and I feel like you're nailing it. Just FYI.
Thank you. So
You
nice.
can you can tell me afterwards how was your experience if it was a successful moment for you as an interviewee. This was incredible, Carrie. I like going to make a t-shirt with the whole paragraph to remember that every day. Thank you so much for sharing. I think actually that kind of leads us well to a question that I have now decided to ask everyone. Yeah, I might change afterwards. I used to ask what's like the best advice you've ever received, but the other day I heard someone say, "What's the worst career advice you've ever received?" And I like love the answers, so I'm stealing that, and I can't remember where it was, so I can't even give proper credit to whoever did that. But what's the worst career advice you've ever received?
Hmm. The worst advice I've ever received. Oh, goodness.
No rush, by the way. We can
Yeah,
keep.
let
It
me
can be something. It doesn't need to be necessarily about a career. It can be something like around life or like something that people say a lot, and you're like,
do
that
you
doesn't.
know do you know what when I was working at Nicole Klagsbrun, somebody told me at the time I was living outside of New York. I was living in Connecticut with my very best friend who I've known since I was 3. Um, and we were living like an hour outside of the city. Uh, and somebody said to me, "What are you doing? Why aren't you living in New York? Like that it's so weird. You should be in New York." And my response was, "But New York doesn't really suit me. I run, I like hiking. I need to be closer to sort of nature, and I'm living with my very best friend who I haven't lived anywhere close to for about a decade. So I'm really happy." And they were like, "Yeah, but you can't penetrate the art world because you're in Connecticut. You're in like nowhere America." And I was like, "It's 45 minutes on a train and I'm here every day for work. What do you mean?" And honestly, like I was being judged. And I couldn't believe it. I was so mad and I was just like, "No, that's not who I am." Like if I have to succeed like going to parties and staying out all night and networking in that way, that's just not for me.
Yeah,
I can't do it. And honestly, the it was a woman who sang it to me and she was like, You're you're screwed. Like this isn't gonna work. You have to move into New York." And I thought about it long and hard. I was like, "Should I move? God, maybe she's right." Um, and I think if I hadn't have been laid off and made redundant, I probably would have, and it would have been the biggest mistake because that's not who I am as a person. Um, so there you go. I think
that
that was the worst
that's
advice.
well, that's really good, and I feel like now the pandemic has come to prove everyone wrong about location. Um, we had a conversation like a few weeks ago, which will probably be more than that once the podcast is released, but with one of our mentors who is from publishing. One of them um, lives in New York. And that's one of the things she said. Like before, there was this thing, like before the pandemic, like, oh, if you're not in New York, you cannot work in publishing. And obviously, living in New York City is a big financial burden. And I
Mm,
imagine that publishing salaries are like the rest of the art world, where it's like not that great. So living in the city is intense. And now there, you can literally be doing it from anywhere else. And that's a big, I think, disruption to a bit of some of that as well. And I agree with you. If it's only by networking and being on the places all the time that you're gonna make it, then I guess this whole thing is about networking, obviously, but it's more about the building relationships and collaboration as
yeah.
opposed to that sort of, oh, you have to be seen and etc. Because I'm also not like, that's a very difficult life to lead
Yeah.
forever. It's not sustainable.
And just thinking long term as a woman who I did want children. Um, I just was like, sorry, how am I ever gonna do the kids thing if I've given my entire life over to my career? I work solidly, like, and then I also have to socialize my work into this. Like, I can't play that game. I don't see how that's sustainable. And I'm really glad I kept those boundaries because I have managed to have kids and still have a career and still work my tail off and have a life. But I think it's really important to to yeah, find balance, right?
100%. And yes, the being a woman is such an important discussion, and I really think that people don't take it into consideration enough. That
Hmm.
the whole thing that, usually women will have children at a time when they are, developing their career or at very key moments, and no one should be penalized for that, but they are, and I agree. Like, I mean, I had a career as a talent manager, and now I had a label and a company, and my work, I didn't have a social life, like, except my work was my social life because I worked, in music and theater, but it was not sustainable. Like, I was in my early 20s and I could keep up with being out until 4 a.m. and then working from and being starting your day at 9 a.m., on emails, et cetera, et cetera. But now that I'm older, I'm like, I cannot. How did I ever do that? Like, impossible.
Yeah.
Um, so in that note, what is something that you actually spend a lot of time doing in your career that you didn't really expect you would, anticipate you would?
Hmm. Math.
What?
I hate math. I mean, when I say I hate math, I hate math. I'm not, my brain does not work um, as a math person. I mean, I had a near perfect score on my SATs, both analytical and verbal, and I basically flunked the math side to the point that they asked if I was cheating
No
because,
way.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I got a 400, and you get 200 points for signing your name, and then you can go all the way up to 2000. But I mean, I did so badly. I'm not a math person. And it is crazy to me, right? I have to run spreadsheets because I have to know production costs, and I need um, to put together estimates for clients if they're buying a body of work, and I have to figure out framing and VAT and invoicing. And oh my God, there's so much math. There's more math than I thought there was going to be.
I'm sorry, I was speaking and I was muted. I
I
was
was like,
laughing.
where'd you go?
Yeah, I was laughing. That is so funny. No one had said that yet. Uh, Emails were mentioned, but yeah, math was it's incredible. I'm glad you found a way to get over it.
Well, thank God
So
for spreadsheets. I mean,
oh my
I
God, yes.
honestly, I would be a broken, I wouldn't have a business. I mean, without a spreadsheet and calculators, I don't know what I would do. My accountant despairs. I mean, poor man. Um, yeah, no,
But
maths. Ugh.
I feel like that's pretty common in the creative industry. I mean, we didn't get into it to keep doing calculations or anything. I'm a big fan of
No,
spreadsheets because of that as well. Because I'm like, I don't want to have to calculate anything in my mind. I don't need to understand. I just need to know what it is, how to get it. That's it. No more complications.
exactly.
Um, so on the flip side of that, what's the thing you love the most about what you do?
Interviewing people.
Aw.
Uh, Interviewing artists for sure. It's like my weird Zen moment. So I've had the opportunity to do a few sort of TV shows and big online interviews, with people like Martin Creed and Marina Abramovich, and I mean just incredible artists. And there is this moment of Zen when you turn off, like now, right? Like I've turned off all my alerts. My email is closed. My children are nowhere near me. My husband is nowhere. No one's asking me anything, and I just get to focus on what you're saying and what I'm saying. And for me, it's this. I don't. It's like it's a higher plane. It's amazing. So yeah, interviewing artists and creatives and people, people, just generally, it comes back to that whole, I like to tell
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah, I love talking to people as well. But like, okay, so what are your top tips for anybody interviewers, me included? But do you do a lot of research? Do you just
I
let like what do you prepare things ahead of time? How do you do it?
No, I do. I am total geeky art historian, right? I'm like, I love spending hours researching and pulling together. I mean, the amount of stuff I pull together for an interview and then don't use, uh, is sad. You just have to let it go. But yeah, prepare, prepare, prepare. Know as much as you can about the person, but then allow the conversation to go where it's going. So if someone says really listen when people are answering, because they may give you something that you just never anticipated.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake I did at the beginning with the podcast. Like the first ones were with like friends because I was really nervous, and so it was easy because it felt casual anyway. I already know everything about their lives or some of it. But then the first time I did it with someone that I didn't know personally, I freaked out a lot. I had like this guide of like questions. I was like, I need to answer them all, and then it looked a bit clunky. Sounds a bit clunky actually because it's a
Mm,
podcast. And that's the tip that most people gave me as well, to like just listen, just talk to people and respond to that. Like you don't need to keep, because I remember being on that interview, I think was like number two, three, the third or fourth interview I did. I was the person was speaking and I was just like thinking about the next question I was gonna ask instead of
mm.
just like talking to them normally.
Yeah,
Um,
but it's so easy too, because you're like, I know what I need to get out of this person, but actually, um, just letting it go normally is good.
do you have some like writers or magazines or websites that you really like to go for, or you think it's like really good writing when it comes to interviewing people? It doesn't need to be necessarily artists. It can be anything.
Hmm, what a good question. I mean, Hans Ulrich Obrist is the art world master interviewer. Um, so I do love most things he does, if not all. Um, I think, the pandemic has been kind of amazing for people coming out of the woodwork in that way. Um, and there's an incredible podcast with Joe Baring, and I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Sculpting Lives. It is called Sculpting Lives. Um, that she's started. I think she started it in the pandemic, but she's got a really lovely interview style, really lovely. Um, and she does lots of Instagram lives, and um, I only recently met her, but I think she's just got a very natural style that's super authoritative without being annoying art worldy speak.
I love those tips. Thank you. I'll definitely be checking it out. I love new podcast recommendations. And Carrie, I was going to ask a question that was going to be easier, but I'm thinking I might put you on the spot here
Oh no.
because you've worked with photographers and photography for a long time. And I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but that's actually like my favorite medium. Like if I could collect
Yay.
anything, it would be photography. And I will at some point collect everything. But yeah, I really, really love it. And so I asked this once to a photographer friend of mine, and I thought just now to ask you to see what he'd say because you're so passionate about the value of art itself. So here it is. Carrie Scott, do you think an image can change the world?
Oh my God, I do. I say it all the time. You need to like look at my hashtag on Instagram. I literally say that all the time, and I know that people think
No.
it's cheesy. No, I do. Art can change the world. That is why I do this. I mean, fundamentally, Isabel, you have just like rung my my bell. Yeah, art can change the world. Images can change the world. They have done it before. They will do it again. Um, and if you look back through history, it's the images that tell our stories. Um, it's not it's not the words, right? People talk about the Mona Lisa. Name anything else that happened. around that time. You can't. You can't give me a text. Um, I just, yeah, images do change the world. And I think artists, are massively undervalued in our society. Um, I mean, just it's embarrassing. And if I could do anything, it would be to change how artists are considered in our world, right? Like you look at and I've said this since my Seattle days, if you look at the bench of the NBA, like the guys that sit on the bench, they don't even play. They're paid more than some of the world's most successful artists. And that's all down to the way society values those talents, right? And there's just no reason that artists should be undervalued. We don't need starving artists. And we should fight as a society to really change the way creatives are rewarded. Because what you and I do is certainly no less value than what a banker does. But we've just decided, right? Society has just decided that it is, and it's time, in my opinion, to change that.
Oh my God, 100% amen to that. That's like the same speech I give. So I'm glad we're aligned, and it's so funny that that's your thing. But yeah, I really like that question. I also stole it from someone that I don't know who at some point in my life reading about photography. So here you go. I'm a big rubber of things that people ask or say, and it's okay. Just have really bad memory. I should start writing down who said what, because at some point someone's gonna be really mad. But Carrie, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I know you're super busy. I really appreciate your time. And again, thank you for joining us on I Like Networking. I hope you have a very successful experience here with us and you enjoy the mentoring relationship. Thanks again for all your amazing words of wisdom and for sharing your story with us so beautifully. I really appreciate it.
Well,
Before we head out, can you just tell us how can people find you if they
um,
want to connect?
yeah. So the best way to find me is either on Instagram. I'm CEA Scott, or if you search my name, I come up, and my website's just my name, carrie-scott.com. And let me just say, honestly, Isabel, thank you, right? What you're doing is really important for all the reasons that we just said. And I mean it when I say I'm super honored to be involved. And I think that, we need more things like this where we can help younger people come up into or even people who just want to switch jobs and come into this space. So creating a support mechanism it's wildly important, and I really am. I'm touched and I'm grateful to be involved, and I hope that I can help.
You definitely will. Thanks so much for your words, Carrie, and I will speak to you soon.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the I Like Networking podcast. For more information on everything that we do, just head over to our website, iliknetworking.uk, or find us on social media. Now, if you're looking for more stories from inspiring entrepreneurs, check out the Serial Entrepreneurs from Startups Magazine, a print and digital publication that champions tech startups. Here, their editor Anna Flockett interviews the most innovative startups of the moment with some startup lessons and failure fables, as well as a sprinkling of inspirational advice. You can find them by searching the Serial Entrepreneur, as in your breakfast, into any streaming service or by going to startupsmagazine.co.uk. See you next week.